The cost of renewable energy, breaking down the numbers. The transition to renewable energy has been gaining momentum in recent years, as the necessity of combating climate change has become increasingly apparent. While renewable sources of energy such as wind and solar power hold great promise for a sustainable future, questions about the cost of renewable energy have long been a cause for concern. In this article, we will explore the cost of renewable energy and break down the numbers associated with developing and using these resources. Before we dig into the costs of renewable energy, let's first touch on what is meant by renewable energy. Renewable energy refers to sources of energy that are replenished naturally and quickly, such as solar, wind, hydroelectric, geothermal, and bioenergy. These sources of energy are often touted as a solution to the problem of climate change and reducing carbon footprint, as they do not produce carbon emissions. One of the most significant issues surrounding the cost of renewable energy is the upfront investment required to build the necessary infrastructure. While the cost of renewable energy has fallen in recent years, it still presents a significant upfront expense that is often argued to be less cost-effective than traditional fossil fuel sources. In general, the cost of renewable energy sources can be broken down into three categories: installation costs, maintenance costs, and electricity production costs. Let's take a closer look at each. Installation costs are the costs associated with building the infrastructure required to generate renewable electricity. The installation costs for a wind turbine involve the turbine itself, the tow, the base, and necessary foundation. One significant advantage of renewable energy is that once the installation costs are paid, the operating costs are negligible compared to traditional energy sources. This is because renewable sources of energy do not require the fuel to be procured, transported, and burned to generate electricity, which produces greenhouse gas emissions and incurs expenses. Maintenance costs are essentially the cost of keeping the renewable energy infrastructure running smoothly. These costs include the routine cost of inspections and upkeep, replacement of parts, and cost of labor required to perform these maintenance tasks. While the maintenance costs of renewable energy sources are lower than traditional energy sources, they are still an expense that must be considered, especially in the long run. The electricity production cost of renewable energy refers to the cost of generating electricity once the infrastructure has been installed and maintenance costs have been accounted for. This cost varies greatly depending on the type of renewable energy being used, with some sources being more cost-effective than others. For example, in recent years, the cost of solar energy has declined rapidly due to advances in technology and falling solar panel prices. Solar energy production costs have gone from around $200 per MWh in 2009 to less than $40 per MWh in 2020, a significant 80% reduction. On the other hand, wind energy production costs have fallen somewhat slowly, but still impressive. On the other hand, bioenergy and hydropower have more stable production costs due to the lack of variation in the fuel source. However, it's important to consider the environmental impact of these sources of renewables, as they can have significant negative effects on the environment if not sourced and managed sustainably. Moreover, renewable energy sources have the potential to improve energy access and affordability for many people around the world, especially those in remote or rural areas. Because renewable energy sources can be harnessed from almost any location with sufficient natural resources, they have the potential to reach areas without access to traditional power grids. However, despite the promise of renewable energy, there are still challenges to its implementation. One of the most significant challenges is the intermittency of renewable energy sources. Solar and wind power, for example, depend on weather conditions and time of day, and as a result, their output can be variable and unpredictable. This means that energy storage and grid integration technologies are crucial to ensure a stable and reliable power supply. Additionally, fossil fuel industries often receive subsidies and have significant political influence, making it difficult to transition to renewable energy sources. Governments and businesses must make a concerted effort to support and invest in renewable energy technologies as part of a comprehensive energy transition strategy. Renewable energy is becoming increasingly popular as people become more aware of the impact that fossil fuels have on our environment. The transition to renewable energy is crucial in mitigating climate change. Solar, wind, and hydropower have been touted as the solution to the world's energy problems. However, the cost of renewable energy remains one of the most significant concerns for policymakers and businesses. The installation costs of renewable energy sources can be high. Building the necessary infrastructure required to generate renewable electricity requires a significant upfront investment. For solar PV, the costs include the solar panels themselves, mounting hardware, wiring, and electrical components. Wind turbines involve the cost of the turbine, tower, base, and foundation. While installation costs can vary depending on the location and size of the renewable system, they still present a significant expense. Maintenance costs of renewable energy sources are lower than traditional energy sources but still an expense that must be considered in the long run. These costs include the cost of labor required to perform inspections, upkeep, and replacement of parts. The cost of electricity production for renewable energy sources varies depending on the type of renewable energy used. Solar energy production costs have decreased rapidly, thanks to advances in technology. Wind energy production costs are also reducing, although not as fast as solar. Bioenergy and hydropower have more stable production costs, but they can have negative environmental impacts. Despite the upfront expense, investing in renewable energy sources has long-term benefits. The financial benefits of using renewable energy sources outweigh the initial investment. Additionally, renewable energy sources create jobs, reduce air pollution, and mitigate the effects of climate